Hi, I'm Aini. We meet again, and let me introduce you first to my teammate, as usual, Lokman and Amir. Hi,
Hello,
Lokman.
Annie. How are you?
Hi, Amir. I'm good. And how are you?
Okay,
Hi.
Okay,
good.
this time we need to present about CRISP DM. Okay, let me start first. Let's go on to the introduction.
Okay.
Data mining is an innovative cycle which requires various ability and information. These days, there is no standard system in which to do data mining ventures. This implies the achievement or disappointment of a data mining venture is profoundly subjected to the specific individual or group doing it, and the practice cannot really be rehearsed over back the undertaking. The CRISP DM, which is cross-industry standard process for data mining, then part of these issues by defining a process model which provide a framework for carrying out data mining project, which is independent of both the industry sector and the technology used. This process model goals is to make large data mining project to become cheaper, more dependable, more repeatable, more manageable, and faster. In this report, we will argue that a standard process model will be beneficial for the data mining industry and present some practical experience with the methodology. Okay, on Chris DM, there are 6 steps. I will go through first at business understanding. The first part focuses on understanding the project objective and requirement from a business perspective, and then converting this knowledge into a data mining problem definition and a preliminary project plan designed to achieve the objective. Through the data, we would like to know how much we spend on imported cigarettes for over the last 20 years. And the next point will be the data understanding. The data understanding stage begin with an underlying information assortment and continuous with exercise so as to familiarize with the information, to distinguish information quality issues, to find initial bits of knowledge into information, or to identify intriguing subsets to frame speculations for shrouded data. There is a close connection between business understanding and data understanding. The detailing of the data mining issue and the task plan require probably some comprehension of accessible information. Data provide information of the volume and value of each country that we imported cigarettes from. This information is divided in tabular form but missing the required information that we need. And the next slides will be continued by Amil.
Thank you, Aini. So I'm going to continue on with data preparation. So the data preparation stages will include all the activities to build up the final data set. And final data set is the data that will be inserted into the modeling tools from the original raw data. So data preparation tasks are likely to be performed multiple times instead of specific order. Tasks under this stage will include tabling, recording and assigned selection, data cleaning, construction of new attributes, and transformation of data for modeling tools. For this practice, we are using this data set from Department of Statistics Malaysia. This data is the import of cigarettes from major countries from Malaysia between year 2000 to 2019. So using the KNAM Analytics platform, we started with the Excel reader node where we configure it to pull the data set from our local drive. From there, we move on to our column rename node where we put in all the column names. Here we configure it to determine which column refers to the volume, which column refer to the value, and for each value and volume column, we tied it to each of the countries we imported cigarettes from. Also in column 0, we are using year as a reference. So from here, if we go to the rename table, we can see that all the column has been renamed properly, either as a string function, double function, or integer function. S- So the next node that we are using is the math formula node because we need to know the price per kilogram of each of the imported cigarette that we have. So for this node, we configured it so that the total value of all imported cigarettes for each year is divided by the total volume of imported cigarettes from each year. We will then append the column at the end of the list and name it as price per kilogram. So when we configure this correctly, the output table will show as such. If we go to the end, we can see the price per kilogram for each year that we imported cigarettes. Once we have done that, we can move on to the next step, which is the modeling step. From the data preparation, we need to know how can this workflow be used in data mining for future data sets. So after we have appended the price per kilogram column on the previous table, we can save the data set as a comma separated value file for further articulation. Usually there are a few techniques for the same data mining problem type, with some techniques require specific data format, but we just use it as a CSV file and can be further articulated in Excel software.
Alright, okay. For the next steps, uh, which is evaluation. So this phase of the project, you are required to build one or more models with high quality and from data analysis perspective. It is important to thoroughly evaluate the model, review the process in executing of constructing the model to achieve organizational goals. So the main objective is to determine the if there is some principles business problem that has not been sufficiently considered. At the end of this phase, a decision on the use of the data mining results should be reached. Since we end at CSV file, it is needed to discuss whether we should create the data visualization for the process CSV file. Okay, so for the next step, we already done for evaluation. The next is deployment. Deployment. So the development of the model is generally not the finish line of the project. Generally, the information gained will need to be organized and presented in a way that the customer can use and understand it. Based on the necessity, the deployment stage can be as simple as generating a report or as complicated as executing a repetitive data mining process. Usually, the data analyst will not be the one who carry the deployment, but the user themselves. Nevertheless, it is important to understand up from what action will need to be carried out in order to actually make use of the created models. Once the data visualization algorithm has been decided, it can be put into the workflow, test, and used for the future data. So we already end up our CRISP DM. So we try to summarize some of the experiences we made in both applying the generic CRISP DM process model and in developing a specialized process model. The most important lesson we learn is to manipulate and articulate datasets. This is to help with machine learning. All steps are vital in make sure data is read and processed correctly to achieve intense business purpose. At initial stage, realizing the intended result and objective are important. It plans out how the sequence of steps are going to be taken care of. Here we also learn that the generic process model to be useful for planning and documentation to facilitate status meeting from the data. However, we do meet a few hiccups along the way. For example, even we rely on the reference model, we did not always follow the advice of user guide. Sometimes it was faster to just go ahead with focusing much on the user guide given, and yet we also have encountered difficulties because we did not follow the model. Occasionally, we do skip planning and documentation tasks because they are time consuming given that we already have the necessary knowledge needed to complete the task. However, in the end, we spent probably more time than we should have spent if we had done the proper level of details planning. Sometimes we misjudge the importance of certain data, which let us know where or wasting our time on the wrong problem. There are also situations where we fail to communicate some information to other team members, who then did their part of the job based on the false assumptions or redid something that was done before. Also, documentation at the end is difficult if you try to reconstruct what and why you did something. So, guys, we can conclude that CRISP DM works. The generic process model is useful for planning, documentation, and communication. It's fairly easy to write specialized process model based on generic checklists. Finding the right level of detail is still difficult, but the process is living, and therefore all the documents must be living documents too. The claims of the CRISP DM projects are not easy to evaluate, especially in terms of speed and cost. For a single small-scale project, the improvements are probably less than expected. But CRISP DM really pays off for repeatable process and for large project with several people involved. In the future, we will constantly adapt the specialized process model as a new experience is gathered. On the technical side, one of our immediate goals is the definition of key performance indicators to make it easier to judge and to control the progress of a particular project. So that's all from us. Thank you guys.